everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the 100th session of the Happiness Hour. Every week, we meet here on Zoom to connect, inspire, and create with the help of a guest that shares their images, stories of inspiration, and their tips to help you improve your photography portfolio. The schedule for our upcoming presentations is on my website at lindanickell.com, as well as the links to previous sessions on YouTube. If you are in the Central Texas area, take a look at the event that is listed for Saturday, March 19th, because the Happiness Hour will be an in-person, all-day event at the Georgetown Photography Festival. And here to tell us just a little bit more about the festival is one of the founders of the event, David Valdez. Hello, Mr. Valdez.
Hi, how you doing? Thank you for having me tonight, especially congratulations on 100. That is great.
Thank you. And thank you for being a part of this program and your friendship and your mentorship. And, you keep poking me to, why don't you do this? Why didn't you think about that? Yeah. So, all right. We won't go into the stalking story because there is one. If you want one, I'll tell it to y'all later because it's really good. Yeah. But I met David through Instagram. He was one of those people that slid into my DMs and it basically said, hey, I'm doing this photography festival in Georgetown. And now we're at year 3. This is our 3rd one. So tell us what you're doing this year, because it's very different from the past 2 years.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. The Georgetown, Texas Photography Festival has been going on now 3 years. And the first year we had 700 people show up. And last year during the pandemic, 500 people still showed up. And this year we're excited to have 12 featured photographers that we place in businesses around the square in Georgetown, Texas. And this year we've added 3 classes, photography classes at the Georgetown Art Center, taught by fashion photographer and Emmy Award-winning photographer Todd White, Earl Nottingham, who just retired from being the chief photographer for Texas Parks and Wildlife, and the famous Harrison Funk, who was Michael Jackson's photographer. And then we're going to have a special, first ever Linda Nickell's Happiness Hour live at the Georgetown Public Library. And I'm really excited about that because I'll actually have to put my pants on for this one. And we're going to have photo walks, portfolio reviews, and it's a chance to really meet and learn from a lot of great photographers. We have a great lineup this year, and I'm so excited. And I just hope that everybody can make it out March 19th from 10 o'clock in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. And then we're all going to meet over at the Golden Rule with Linda. And so come on out March 19th from 10 a.m. to 4. My co-host is the Williamson Museum, and you can go to williamsonmuseum.org and click on events, and everything is there. We also have a Georgetown, Texas Photography Festival Facebook page, a website, and Instagram. So March 19th, I hope you can make it.
I will be there early. So I'm going to really encourage you guys, if you're close enough to Georgetown, come out, bring your camera. It's a lot of fun. I've met, just Instagram friends walking around and go, aren't you? It's really kind of fun to have those opportunities to meet your people and be with your people that all love doing the same things you do. So, and I think there's going to be such a great variety of talent there. And so thank you for inviting me and my crew, David. It's certainly an honor.
Yeah, that's going to be really a lot of fun. I think your part's going to be really unique because you have such a wide variety of photographers that join you on Zoom 100 times, and you'll get to do it live. for the first time. So that's going to be really great.
So both of us will be wearing pants, and everybody's going to cross their fingers that I don't trip when I step up on the stage. All right. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Guys, tonight's guest is David Downs. David is a Texas-based photographer whose work covers a mix of different genres, but includes nature, travel, portraiture, and commercial projects. David also leads photography workshops and will work with photographers in private one-on-one sessions. So in his presentation tonight, Exploring the Artist Within, David will share his journey toward being an artist and a photographer. You can see more of his work on Instagram at Pixel Dave and on his website at daviddowns.com. Welcome to the Happiness Hour, David.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to just chatting with what I know to be based on some of what you said before, and then actually some of the people that you said that have been participating, and I've been out and looked at some of the websites. And so I know I'm speaking to a large group of very established photographers. And hopefully, you walk away with one little piece that makes you see something a little different next time, or take an extra moment to look at something from a slightly different viewpoint.
I did, I told you I was going to do like a little bitty intro. So I glossed over. So I know there's more to you than just what I said. So if there's something that you want to make sure that people take away about you, please share that. I know that you had, when I had invited you, I think your reply was, I'm just curious, how did you find me? And I admitted that I stalked your website, but I really found you. I started with, I was looking for photos of Italy, and for whatever reason, hashtags work, people, because I came across a handful of beautiful photos, but one in particular happened to be you. And then I'm like, oh, that's a cool name. And then, I go look at your page, and, when there's a website, I hit the button because I'm curious to see what people put on their websites. And when I didn't have to dig too far, but then I realized, oh my gosh, he's from Texas. And I don't know, not that I know everybody from Texas, but oh, he's from Texas. This will be easy to rope him into this. So thank you for coming.
See. I should, I guess, not give my address out like I did earlier. So
I know you guys missed it.
Well, what I'm going to talk about tonight is, again, because there's so many, I think, very well established and knowledgeable photographers on here. I mean, I could do editing and everything, but I'm not really going to focus on that. I'm going to talk more about really kind of how I became thinking of things through an artistic lens, maybe, perhaps. And it doesn't mean that my images are all abstract or anything else, but it just means that I approach every opportunity to capture an image maybe with a different lens or a different viewpoint. And so I want to just talk through that and see if I can understand, or if I can pass on a way to kind of hear that voice inside. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to run through some slides, and then, feel free to ask a question as we go. I think, Linda, you're going to kind of monitor the chat. And if there's something that needs to be answered as I'm going, absolutely. Or we can just have a good discussion at the end. I would encourage you, as we said, Barry Benton, my business partner's on. If he asks a question, don't repeat it in the group. Oh boy!
Come on, Barry. Come on.
Disregard that.
Don't be scared, Barry. I'll back you up.
Let me. So I'll have to admit that I've had this kind of thought around exploring the artist within for a while, but I've never really put it down into some kind of presentation until preparing for this presentation. And so you guys are seeing my rough draft, perhaps. Eventually, I think I'll probably try to turn this into something that I can share, maybe in my own video or something else. But I thought for a long time when I was first establishing my Instagram page, and even my website, a little bit about how to express what I feel about art. And this saying at the bottom is what I came up with. And it's true. I feel like, for me anyway, art is something that's inside us, right? And it's wanting to get out. And the only way for it to get out is for us to listen to it and then create something that it basically gives voice, to that energy that's inside us, that's creative. And so I kind of think about this quite a lot, but it's really meaningful to me. And there's several questions that I ask people sometimes that come on the workshops, or people that reach out to me that are interested in photography. And it's something I've found with most photographers is that they see the world differently than other people do. And so I'll ask people, do you find yourself staring at something after everyone else has looked at it and gone on? And, maybe an example is seeing a room, right? A little different. I was in a Rotary Club meeting, and they had asked me last minute to stand up and talk about my photography because the speaker at the last minute had to cancel. And I asked everyone, I said, look, just look around the room and tell me what you see. And, I got lots of answers: chairs, booths, lights, all that stuff. And what I saw was the pattern of the light reflecting off the backs of the curved chairs, right? And when I started describing what I saw in the room, which wasn't just chairs, and wasn't just booths, and wasn't just plates and glasses, there were a few people that went, oh yeah, okay, now I see, they could really grasp it. Sometimes I see something and I feel like, wow, man, I haven't seen this before, but it was a little different. And oftentimes that is that within your conscience, you've seen something that resonated with you. It might have been a painting, it might have been a picture, it might have just been another scene in another location, but you're seeing it again, maybe from a slightly different vantage point. But it's again kind of reaching out to you and saying, hey, look at this, feel this, right? And and again, it's that voice inside you speaking up. If you go into a new place, do you spend more than just a moment looking around? Do you find yourself looking at patterns, or looking at contrasts or color patterns and things like that? And everyone else has already gone into space, and you're still admiring the way things are kind of put together. I like this saying: what others say you are sometimes irrationally happy when observing sunsets and sunrises. Clouds in the sky are flat. I get really happy. I see something like a sunset that's beautiful, and or just even light outside from a sunset, and I just feel it. It just resonates with me. It's like a whole nother form of energy, and so it makes me. It just drives me emotionally, right? And again, I think that's kind of that creative voice. It's that artist within us that's trying to speak. And so maybe all of you guys, most of you I know are pretty accomplished photographers. You may be going, yeah, this is nothing new. I experience this all the time. But I'm going to encourage you to kind of learn the language and listen. And what do I mean by that? If you're a child, or anybody who's trying to learn a new language, the first time you hear the voice or hear the words, you don't understand them. What this means is that if you walk into a space, or you go look at a scene, and immediately it doesn't yell at you and go, oh, you got to take a picture of this. I encourage you to just listen, right? Just see, is there something that moves you about the scene? And I'm gonna circle back to this later when I start talking about inspiration, but you have to take some time. If you, and Barry and I talk about this in some of our workshops, if you walk up, you set your tripod down, and you start shooting, what are you going to get? Who knows, right? So it's important to when you come into a new space to listen to it. Listen to what your body, your mind, your that artist within you is saying. What is it about the scene that's kind of, resonating with you? The other thing I would suggest is that you study art and artists. If you're a landscape photographer, by all means, go look for books on landscape artists and read their stories and their explanation of why they paint the way they do. What are they seeing? Things of that nature. Get to know their styles. Within the photography world, there's often a discussion around someone's style, and there are people that have very, very specific styles, very recognizable almost from the moment you see an image. You go, that's so and so, right? I don't know that I have a style. Maybe I do. As you mentioned, I shoot commercial, I shoot portraiture, I shoot landscapes. I shoot a lot of different things. So I don't know that I've really truly developed a style, but I also don't know that that's 100% necessary. But I do know that if you study an artist, that is an area that you focus and do a lot of work, your work will improve because you will start to see things maybe a little clearer. And ultimately, I think what's really happening is you're starting to listen to what's inside you. Because as you look through that art, certain images, certain paintings, certain things like that are going to resonate with you, and it'll help you begin to understand and listen to that voice that's inside you. Why is this resonating with me? And then get inspired. By all means, continue to look at other photographers, explore their work. If you get a chance to listen to them and them talk about their journey or what resonates with them, that's very important. I'm going to share with you some of my inspiration points and kind of the timeliness of them in my journey. And then that leads me to this as a personal journey. So make mistakes, over process, under process, take pictures, leave them plain, take pictures, distort them every which way you want to. Ultimately, the goal here is to continue to do things until you have a very open dialogue with that artist that's inside you and what it is that it's trying to say. And I think that's also how you maybe discover your style, if you're going to have one, is through that exploration. And I think you'll have fun along the way. It's also important to understand it's a personal journey. So you may get criticized, you may get comments, you may get feedback from others. I would take it all as others trying to give you feedback to help you understand. But you have to also understand that your idea of over-processed, oversaturated, something else, that might just be part of your developing style. And so take everything that you hear with a grain of salt, but ultimately don't let it divert you from you following the path that you feel most comfortable going down. There we go. Hopefully this thing will hop forward. This is actually an image I took in Big Bend National Park, the Chisos Mountains. And I paired that because of the sculpture, these mountains that are sculpted there. And Michelangelo had a saying, the sculpture is already complete within the marble block before I even start my work. It's already there. I just have to chisel away the superfluous material. And I kind of love that quote because I think in photography, it's kind of the same way. Many times I find myself taking an image and in the end, I'm removing distractions to get to what it is that really spoke to me. And even though it's not sculpture, I think there's some, it's a good analogy for art, creating art with an image. And talk about inspiration for a minute. If you've not heard of him, there's a photographer for National Geographic for years. His name is DeWitt Jones. You can look him up. He has a video series. He sells these videos for inspirational presentations. He has one of them called Everyday Creativity. And if there was one thing I was going to tell you to watch, it would be this. And you can go watch it. You don't have to buy it. It's about $800, I think, on sale to buy this. But that's really meant for presenting to a big group or something. But if you watch it, you're really going to get, I think, that understanding of creativity and how to find what it is that's resonating with you. A couple of quick stories. One is he's in Yosemite. He's taking a picture of Yosemite Falls, and he takes a picture. It's a beautiful picture, and he talks through, well, what is it that really brought me to this scene? And eventually he winds up with a section of that image that was what resonated with him. And when you see it, you'll be just like, oh, wow. You also hear it. It's like that voice inside him spoke clearly to anybody that wanted to see it. It's a fantastic video to watch. Like I said, it doesn't cost you anything. You've got to put in your email and you get on their email list, etc. But I watched this video actually probably back in 2008, maybe something like that. And it was shown at one of our corporate events. And man, it just fired me up. I was like, I have got to start taking pictures again, because I had not been taking them seriously in quite a long time. And you watch this video and you're going to feel like, okay, now I know how I should be approaching certain things. Now I know how to get that momentous kind of image that I was looking for. And then there was a period of time where I was bound and determined that when I was 60, which is the age I am now, I was going to through hike the Appalachian Trail. If you don't know what the Appalachian Trail is, it's a very long hike from Georgia to New York. And it takes about 6 months. And I was following a lot of different hikers. And there was a hiker named Ben. First off, you got to love his name, Ben. And Ben is a photographer who decided to go hike this trail. And I asked him once, we got to know each other a little bit. And I asked him, what did you carry with you? And he carried one camera body with a 35mm lens. But he took these amazing images restricted to just that setup. And I asked him about, well, how about other lenses or anything? He says, I never would have made the hike. It's too heavy. The equipment's heavy. But he put out a book, Tell My Mom Not to Worry. And it was inspirational enough to me that I actually helped him finance getting the book done. He has such an incredible eye for seeing things. And again, it really motivated me to focus a little more on composition and understanding how to blend different compositional elements in order to get the most powerful image. And then Joel Grimes, if you don't know Joel, he started taking pictures a long time ago. He's made over $1 million in photography multiple times. I was struggling a little bit with my photography. Honestly, I think I had lost touch with that voice. And I saw his work and it was very creative, not abstract manner, but the way he blended elements, and he used composites a lot. And it wasn't that I was interested in doing composites as much as just understanding that creative mindset to do something like that. And he wound up coming and teaching at Texas School. For those of you that don't know it, Texas School is held here in Dallas every April. It's a week long. You sign up and you get to spend all week with one photographer, one phenomenal photographer, or a couple sometimes. And Joel was going to be teaching, and I managed to get into his class. If you go Google it, Texas School, it's texasschool.org. It's an amazing opportunity. And about 10 minutes into his presentation, Joel said to the class, you have to decide, are you a photographer or are you an artist? And it was like, boom, light bulb went off. I'm an artist. I'm not a photographer per se. I'm an artist. I'm a photographer to the extent that my photographs are my raw material, just like Michelangelo's block of marble my photographs are my raw material to do with, whatever I want, to answer to that voice inside me that's saying, create this. This is what needs to be created. So it really just kind of freed me up. I just suddenly lost that barrier that I felt like I was having. And so I would encourage you. Joel Grimes has a ton of classes out there, start to finish and all of that. I really enjoy his discussions around the art of photography. So something else to look at. And then inspiration, I continue to look out. I get 500 Pics, 500 PX as a website I go to a lot. But I'm constantly on Instagram looking through and seeing what other people are doing. And I'm usually able to find something that goes, wow, okay, I like that. It resonates with me. How can I apply that to kind of the approach I take to photography? So I'm going to run through a series of images. How are we doing on time?
You're
Pretty
doing
good?
fine. You're fine.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, great.
Plenty of time.
So when I first started taking pictures, I'd see something like, a bunch of roses, a rose bush, and this is obviously a very poor image, but it was one of the ones that I took, so I stuck it in here, right? Very contrasty, etc. But I was just enamored with these roses. And when I first started taking pictures, this would be something that I would do. Oh, I got a soft background. Okay, I'm creating art, right? And it was only after I started thinking back along the lines of, okay, but what's really drawing me to this? Is it just the bush with a soft background, or is it something else? And it leads me to something like this. So it's the same rose, same kind of rose and everything, but this is much more, I've sold this image. I would never sell the other image, right? But this one sells because it resonates with someone. And this is a very old image that I did way back when I first started shooting, probably 11 years ago when I seriously got into it. Slight sidestep. In 2004, I found out I had melanoma. And I caught it early, thankfully. Didn't have to have a bunch of treatments, had surgery, all that. And it led me to start raising money for cancer research. And I chose leukemia and lymphoma, and I spent several years actively doing 100-mile bike rides and marathon, half marathons, whatever that would raise money for cancer. And in 2011, I did a full Ironman triathlon, which is a 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, and then a full marathon, boom, 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 back to back. And as a reward to myself for training for that and completing the training, I bought myself a new DSLR. It was a Nikon D5100 with a couple of lenses. And this was taken shortly after I got that camera, and I just started kind of playing around with it. So anyway, I was in Italy, and it's our last day there. I'm in Rome, and I'm trying to get to a church to take pictures of the ceilings. I did a lot of ceilings in Italy. Every church just has these magnificent ceilings. And so I'm trying to get to this church that's not too far from our hotel. It's our last day. We got to leave later that afternoon. And I'm headed for the church, and I walk by this gentleman who's begging. And I walked past him 100 yards and went, I've got to take his picture. So I go back because I was in a hurry to get to the church, but I went, I've got to go. So I come back and I start taking pictures, and I've been asked before, well, were you nervous about taking this picture? Was there, did you feel like you're, invading his privacy or something? And he let me stand there, and I took pictures for probably 5 minutes. And then as I walked by, I dropped like $20 into his hat, roughly 20 euros, whatever that was worth at the time, and kept going. And as I'm walking down the busy sidewalk, I'm looking at the back of my camera, right? And I'm flipping through the images I took. And I realized I don't have what I wanted. I don't have what I really wanted. And so I walked all the way back to him, and I got this image. And I kind of knew, even when I took it, what I was ultimately going to wind up with, because what really caught my eye the first time was when I walked by him was this profile. And, eventually through editing, all right, there it goes. I cut it down to this and was really able to focus in on the things, that beard, the texture in it, the hat with the texture, the hand, the face, everything that kind of spoke to me about, why in the first place was I attracted to him? What was it that drew me to him? And so I didn't have to go back once. I went back twice to finally find that image that I felt like, okay, now I've got what I need in terms of raw material to be able to create what that voice inside me was saying. Here's what the art is. This is the piece that we want, that I want to say. And I did a show. Barry was part of that show as well. It's been a couple of years back, 2 or 3 years back. And the very first image to sell in that show was the one on the right. And I don't think it had even opened completely to the public yet, but one of the very first people in, who was an artist from Chicago, actually bought it, said, sold, I want it. And so anyway, sometimes you've got to go back, right, to find and satisfy that voice. Here's a swan on a lake in Arkansas. There's a lake up north, for those that are anywhere up north, North Texas or in Arkansas. It's up north of Heber Springs, Arkansas. It's really more of a pond, actually, a big pond, but more of a pond. If you look, you can see all of the white in the background, and that's because there are literally hundreds of swans that winter there every year. It started with one pair about 25 years ago, and now there are hundreds that winter there every year. And but I took this picture knowing really internally what I was wanting was this. And so did it take a lot of work? Yes. I mean, if you look at the amount of stuff in the water and everything else, but this is another image that I sold very quickly when I first put it out. And they liked the fact that I had done it as a narrow, wide image, and black frame, white mat. And I've seen it in her house where she put it, and it draws a lot of comments. But again, I had to find within, I don't know how many images that I took of swans, I had to find the one that gave me, really what I was looking for. This is almost, my image is not iconic, but this image of a swan with its neck bent, very iconic, right? So to some degree, I was recreating something I'd seen before. So I'm in Mexico on the beach, a very foggy morning, kind of unusual, and the sun's coming up, and it's already up. And, the images that I've just showed you weren't so much about adding anything as they were taking things away and getting the viewer to focus on the main thing that I was wanting to put out there. And so I took this image, and you see the bird that's flying here right above this boat. This is a fishing boat. They're headed out. And nice image, nice enough. It shouldn't be centered, should off to one side and stuff. So here's a case of where I said, all right, I'm going to remake this. So what did I do? I got rid of those buoys that were out front. I added a pelican behind it. And it just made it a much stronger image, in my opinion. And when I posted it, it was like, it just spoke to everybody, right? Everybody who saw it was like, wow. And they were all enamored with this one bird flying, behind it, very silhouetted. And it created great balance in the image. So, question, if you're a photographer, do you add the bird? Well, not if you're more in the journalistic, mindset. That would be illegal. if you're entering a contest, if I was entering this into some kind of contest, I would say this is a composite. I added the bird. But I don't. Originally, before I kind of had that moment with Joel Grimes, the idea of adding something to an image or modifying it in some way, I would have felt guilty or something like that. I just felt like, oh, I can't do that. When in truth, it's my art. I can do whatever I want, right? And if I'm presenting it honestly, and I hold myself out to be an artist. So if someone loves this image, I don't feel the need to say, yeah, but it's a composite. No, let them love the image for what it is. Let them love the art for the way it looks. If they want to know, by all means, tell them. But I don't feel obligated to say with my art, well, this is what I did with it. So I just took this image in Death Valley in February. This is actually a pano, and you can kind of tell that from the way it spins out and everything else. Ultimately, this was the blend that I wanted. It's also a focus stack. And so this is the way it looks in the camera. And obviously, this is not very attractive and not something that you would just put out there, particularly as art. So then I edited it. It got pretty. I like texture. I'll be honest. I like texture and I like contrast. I like colors. And as a matter of fact, I have a very good friend, photographer, fashion photographer, and of course, he makes all these women that look like the smoothest skin, no flaws, all this stuff. And we had a happy hour recently, and he introduced me. He said, "This is Clarity Dave." And the reason he said that was because when he and I shot together on this one model shoot. And of course, I didn't do this with her, but we talked about in editing photographs, what I really enjoyed was that edgy look, right? And interesting faces. And I told him at one time, I was the guy that would take the clarity slider to 100. Take it into Photoshop and then back into Lightroom so I could add more clarity. So he introduces me as Clarity Dave. So anyway, there's a lot of texture in the front of this, and the sky's pretty, but it wasn't enough for me. So I said, all right, I'm going to put motion in the clouds. So I used Photoshop and a motion blur filter to add the motion in the clouds. And I just recently, posted this one, and people are really enjoying it. This is one of those cases, almost like the boat. Would it have been possible when I was taking the picture of the fishermen for there to be a single pelican following them? Absolutely. I see it all the time, birds following a boat, a fishing boat, right? Would it have been possible for me to set up here and use a long exposure to get the clouds blurred like that? Absolutely. That tends to be the type of additions and alterations that I tend to make, is something that the image could have been captured using a filter or something else and still giving you the result that you have here. And then I don't know, I think, yeah, this is really this is the print version. When I edit images for print, I tend to do them a little brighter, because when you go to print something, it's ultimately never as bright and brilliant as what you have on your screen. So I brightened it up so that in a print version, it would look good. So I'm happy to take questions. Hopefully some part of this was helpful to you, or at least made you think a little bit. And I'm happy to, if we want to, I can bring up my Instagram page. We can go through images there, or I can just take questions if anybody has any.
I've not seen any questions, and that always tells me like, wow, you answered all their queries, or they're a little shy. And sometimes that's the case here. So David Valdez wants to know, where do you sell your work?
Okay, great question. Hang on a second. Here we go. So on my website, it has a link to Fine Art America, and I typically get something sells there once a month or so. And sometimes it's next to nothing. It's $25 for the digital copy, or occasionally I'll sell a $500, $600, even $1,000 print. That's just occasional. A lot of it comes from just the people that know me here in North Texas. A lot of my sales are to people that know me, and they see something I post. A good example on here is this owl right here. I had somebody buy this for their cabin. They have a cabin up on the lake, and they bought this on metal. She actually had me, it looks a little blue in these corners, and that's because the version that I did for her, she had a blue theme, and so she wanted the owl done that way, and they get a lot of comments on it. So
I'm seeing one from Karen in here. This is a great question, Karen. Her question is, do you mostly get your ideas when you're out in the field or after you get home and you're editing?
that is a great question. I will tell you, a sculptor like a Michelangelo, and I've read this about him before. He would spend months looking for the right block of marble to create his art from. So when I go out into the field, I typically don't go out and set up my tripod. I will typically go out and actually, and I've heard people say, use your phone or whatever. I use my lenses on my camera, and I will look through my viewfinder and at different focal lengths and just look at the area around me. And I'm looking for something that resonates with me, one. And then once I have an idea of something that resonates with me, I may stick to one thing and one shot, one angle, one area for quite a while, shooting it in different ways. And again, it's all about, to me, what I'm doing is creating that raw material that I can see inside when I get home. Okay, now I've got the raw material that I need to be able to create the art that I want to create. So great question. I would encourage all of you, if you're shooting with a tripod, and you should most of the time. I don't always shoot with a tripod. Let's see, some of the images I shot, like this wasn't shot with a tripod. I just handheld. So there, you can kind of, if you're going to use a tripod, great. But before you set your tripod in a location, walk around, listen, as I said earlier, listen, see what your eye really, see what speaks to you. If you see a scene and you go, oh, wow, that's amazing. Okay, what about that scene is amazing to you? It might be everything, and that's fine, capture everything. But my guess is if you think about it and look at it from different angles, one of the things I didn't mention earlier about Benton is I called and spoke with him one time, and I asked him, I says, how do you get such amazing images? And he does primarily weddings and stuff like that. And he told me, well, this is a message I was given by a mentor of his a long time ago. And that was get high, get low, get near, get far. And so you should do that when you approach the place. Get down low, shoot from above, try shooting further away and putting a person in there at a small scale, or get really, really close to something. And you're going to wind up with more creative images. So nothing wrong with shooting with a tripod, but don't anchor yourself. On the other hand, if you found that something that resonates with you, sit there for 2.5 hours taking pictures as the light changes to find that, that one piece of raw material that you really need.
David is asking, do you introduce yourself as an artist or as a photographer?
I tend to try to introduce myself as an artist. Most people call me a photographer, but I will often say, yeah, I'm a photographer. It helps me get what I need to be, to create art. So I want to be honest with folks. Yes, I'm a photographer. My purpose isn't to publish photography pictures. It's really to publish art. Okay. Because, anyway, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I think I interrupted you and I didn't mean to.
No, it's fine.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions in here. So I'm going to get you to take down your screen. And there's a comment here that kind of resonated with me. So thanks for saying this, Rose. And I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, but she says, we are all basically considering the ways that new ways to look at our own photography in a whole new way. And so she's appreciating your perspective and allowing her to look at herself as an artist. I hope I said that right, Rose, because that's what I was thinking in my head when I saw that comment.
Well, I think part of it is that I've never considered myself creative per se until I discovered a love of photography many years ago, but I've never taken it to the next level and certainly never considered it that I could be artistic. So it's really a good thing to dwell upon and think about.
I continue to explore like intentional camera movement. I started kind of doing a little more of that. Again, it's just seeing what else I can do. What else can I create? I continue to listen to the voice inside. What opportunities are there to be creative, to be the artist? Who knows where it'll lead me, right? I like David's, I see his, and turn around and see what's behind you always. But if you watch DeWitt Jones's video, you'll see that. And I will tell you, it will age itself, because when he's talking to you, the first thing you see is he's using a slide projector. So just be aware.
All right. I'm not seeing anything else in there unless I missed it. And if I did, I apologize. David, thank you for coming and accepting an invitation from a strange girl. I think I sent it through email. Sometimes I send things through Instagram, and I think no one's going to ever reply to this, and it always surprises me when they do. And so I'm really tickled to add this session to the library, the YouTube channel, because I told you this earlier before we even started. Your topic was just perfect for tonight. I mean, we've covered things like the technical stuff from panoramas and focus stacking to, we're all hit those different topics, whether it's portraits or landscape. But for me, I need people I get more excited when people share their creative, their creative touch on how they're producing work. And that just makes me think of why didn't I think of that? Because creativity does not come naturally to me. I have to work at it. And I get a surge of energy when I listen to other people talk about it, because it comes easily to you. And I'm very, very envious of that. And thank you for taking the time to share that.
It took work. Yeah. to hear the voice, right? And I still sometimes find myself getting distracted by, here's how you do something, instead of going, wait a minute, how could I do it? So anyway, and I'm seeing lots of thanks. Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. Yeah. As I said, this is the dry run, so to speak, of this, and my voice isn't great, but thanks everyone for listening.
No, that's okay. Come here if you want to practice anytime. This is a great place to come and practice, what you're trying to do, and then, charge us a whole lot of money when we go to one of your workshops, because it's going to be perfected by then. All right. Guys, I'm going to close out this session. You can connect with David through his website, daviddowns.com, and on his Instagram at PixelDave. And I didn't list this, and I probably should have. So tell me your the business website that you have with one of my future. No, I got his name now. One of my future speakers.
Benton, BENTON, Downs.com, BentonDowns.com. And that's our workshops, and it lists, what we have coming up. Colorado is always a great workshop. I'm doing a workshop in Fort Griffin, Texas. If you haven't been to Fort Griffin, Beautiful, nice guys there, and some great opportunities. Big Bend, White Sands is, I think there's only 2 seats left, maybe for White Sands. So anyway, and then Caddo Lake sold out. Arkansas's got a couple of spots left.
How big are those workshops? How many people do you guys take with you?
Typically no more than 8 for Barry and I. If there's only one of us, we might keep it to 6. Caddo Lake is 10. We put 5 on each boat. That one's sold out and been sold out. We have a wait list. I'm actually exploring to see if I can't do another workshop like the weekend before somehow and add another, at least for 5 seats or something. But yeah,
That's wonderful. That's a sign of success, is that people are, you've got sold out workshops. That's absolutely wonderful. All right. Thank you again. Next week, Charles Gangus will be here to present secrets to making captivating images. So until next time, go out and create something beautiful. And I hope that we see you again soon.